Howland Reed, Lord of Greywater Watch, has an almost mythical status within the Song of Ice and Fire community. He's seen by most as the master key to unlocking all of the central theories surrounding the parentage of Jon Snow and the pivotal events at the Tower of Joy, due to Howland being the last living witness to what really happened at the Tower in Dorne, 16 years before the events of the current story begin. But why was he there in the first place? What reason did Ned Stark have for choosing Howland Reed as one of his 6 companions? And how did it come to pass that only Ned and Howland survived? And the biggest questions of all, what really happened at both the Tower of Joy and afterwards at Starfall, the seat of House Dayne? The theories pertaining to these questions are almost endless, some of which are highly credible and based on sound reasoning and solid evidence, whilst others are so wacky that calling them tinfoil theories would be an insult to tinfoil theories. It would take a 2-hour video to go through them all, and I have no wish to regurgitate other people's work, so let's just look at what we know from the small amount of information that we're given, discuss how credible that information may be, and try to find a probabilistic measure as to what it all might mean, starting with the man himself. There are no direct descriptions of Howland's appearance in the books, but we can say that as a crannogman, he'll be shorter than the average man. His daughter Mira describes him as having been brave, strong and smart in his youth, and that he had taught her to fight with a 3-pronged frog spear and a net, as many of the crannogmen of the neck tend to use. Mira also explains that Howland grew up hunting, fishing, climbing trees, and learning the magic of the crannogman. Though as I've explained in a previous video, I'm somewhat dubious about the magic of the crannogman. Mira claims that her father can breathe mud and change earth to water and water to earth, and talk to trees, suggesting that he has some magical abilities. However, Jojen says the same in A Storm of Swords, except he's talking about Mira, who never once demonstrated any kind of powers during her long trip north with Bran. In fact, breathing mud and running on leaves and all the rest of it appears to be nothing more than colloquial phrases from the swampland region of the Neck, said about people who are proficient in fieldcraft of various kinds, such as hunting and fishing. So I feel we must discount any notion of Howland having magical abilities until we're shown some evidence to the contrary. But what else can we say about him? Well, it would appear that he's not much of a fighter, given that in the tale about the Knight of the Laughing Tree, Howland gets beaten up by 3 young squires. You might say that's harsh, given that he's outnumbered 3-1, but the squires are said to be no older than 15, and they get chased off by Lyanna Stark, who's just a young girl at the time. So I think it's fair to say that Howland is not much of a fighter, if we believe the tale regarding the Knight of the Laughing Tree is true. I suspect that it may well be true, given that it's implied Howland himself told the story to his children. But this demonstrates how little we actually know about Howland Reed. We're already having to resort to just guessing from second or third hand stories. This all serves to make the question more intriguing. Why would Ned take a small man who can't even fight off 3 teenage squires to fight against 3 of the greatest swordsmen in the realm? The answer is that Ned had no idea the Kingsguard would be at the tower. When he has his fever dream after injuring his leg, Ned recalls telling the Kingsguard that he was surprised not to see them at the Battle of the Trident, and that he thought they would be either in King's Landing protecting the king, or on Dragonstone helping the remaining Targaryens to escape. So basically, he was expecting them to be in several other places, but not at the Tower of Joy. This is all but confirmed by Ned's choice of companions, none of whom were particularly renowned as great fighters. On the contrary, Sir Mark Riswell is described as being soft of speech and gentle of heart. Ned could easily have brought 100 men-at-arms with him, but instead just chose a handful of men that he liked and trusted. So all of these facts would suggest that they had expected to encounter little to no resistance at the tower. It's said that Ned and Howland had shared a tent for a few days during the tourney at Harrenhal, and that Howland had dined with the Starks at the feast, so we can assume that the two had become friends during this time. So in answer to the question, why did Ned take Howland Reed to the Tower of Joy, it would seem that the two were friends, and they had not anticipated having to do much fighting. So now let's turn our attention to what really happened at the Tower of Joy, and then afterwards at Starfall. This is obviously all speculative, as we have no actual information to work from, but putting all the pieces together, I think we can say for sure that the events definitely did not happen in the way that we are led to believe. When Ned tells Bran that if it wasn't for Howland Reed, he would have been killed by the Sword of the Morning, Sir Arthur Dayne, we're supposed to assume that Howland kills Sir Arthur, as in the TV show when he stabs him in the back, but to me this seems unlikely. Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, one of the greatest swordsmen in history, would be more than capable of engaging two men at once, especially if one of them was a little crannogman who we've already seen has no significant skill when it comes to fighting. It seems that it would be more likely that Howland stopped Sir Arthur from killing them both by using words, not weapons. Presumably at this point they hear the baby crying, and Sir Arthur tells them that it's the child he's protecting, to which Howland or Ned could tell Sir Arthur that if he wants to keep his vows, the best way to do that is to let them live. And the three of them hatch a plan together, where Sir Arthur gets to fulfill his vow to protect the child by allowing Ned to take the baby to Winterfell to raise as his bastard, and Howland and Sir Arthur disappear. When you think about the options available to Sir Arthur at this point, if he kills Ned and Howland, then what does he do with the baby that he swore to protect? He can't take it to Starfall, as Robert Baratheon would destroy them all in order to avenge his best friend and rid the world of Rhaegar's heir. Going on the run with a newborn baby isn't an option either. He'd need a wet nurse to feed it, plus all the other things that a newborn baby needs. Add to that, the Sword of the Morning is one of the most famous men in the realm. There's almost nowhere he can go without being recognised. So again, the best way for him to fulfil his vow is to let Ned take the baby to Winterfell. So in my mind, from the options that are available at this point, this is the most likely way for Howland to have saved Ned's life, by reminding Sir Arthur of the choices that are available to him. There's also some evidence to suggest that Ned and Howland weren't alone at the end of the fight, and that's when Ned recalls Lyanna dying in his arms. He thinks, that's how they had found him. Who is they? Howland and who? Also, they pulled the tower down afterwards. That's quite a job for two men. But this has all been said before, so let's move on by asking, what plan could Ned, Howland and Sir Arthur have made? This is where Ashara Dayne comes in. We're supposed to believe that Ashara threw herself into the sea, committing suicide after giving birth to a stillborn baby, and then hearing of her brother's death. But this raises an old question of why House Dayne would then call the heir to their house Little Ned. Ned Stark had returned the greatsword Dawn to Starfall after the events at the Tower of Joy, but this alone wouldn't explain why the Danes would be so taken with the man that apparently killed one of their own, that they named the next Lord of Starfall Little Ned. There has to be more to it than we're being told. The father of Ashara's baby seems to be important. The rumours of Ned Stark and Ashara Dayne having a relationship are fairly persistent throughout the story. Little Ned tells Arya that her father, Ned, and his auntie, the Lady Ashara, had fallen in love at the tourney at Harrenhal, as told to him by his other aunt. Catelyn Stark also hears maids in her own household talking about Ned and Ashara. Cersei Lannister accuses Ned of fathering a bastard with Ashara, when Ned and Cersei have the famous "when you play the Game of Thrones you win or you die" meeting in King's Landing. So if this apparent rumour has circulated its way all around the Seven Kingdoms, and the author reminds us of it several times, then it seems quite likely that it's more than just a rumour. and Ashara may well have given birth to Ned Stark's baby. So could it be possible that Sir Arthur took his sister and her baby and went into hiding, faking their own deaths in order to hide the identities of both children, meaning that Sir Arthur could keep his vow to protect Rhaegar and Lyanna's child, and Ashara could hide the identity of Ned's true bastard, in order for him to claim Jon Snow as his own. After all, the honour of Ned Stark is famous throughout the realm. People might believe that he let it slip just once, but twice. This could get people asking some questions. This explains perfectly why the Danes would be such fans of Ned Stark. Not only did it allow Sir Arthur to keep his vow, but it saved the honour of House Dayne by not having to declare that the much-loved Lady Ashara was despoiled with a bastard child, even if it was Ned who got her pregnant in the first place. Though if the two had fallen in love before Ned was betrothed to Catelyn Tully, then perhaps the Danes could forgive him for that. So let's just say that this is all true, and I'm by no means saying that it is. I'm just suggesting that this would make sense of the tangled web of snippets of information that we have. But let's say that it is true. Where could Sir Arthur and Ashara have gone to hide for all these years? Who is the one person that could take them to a place that's famous for remaining hidden? The one person who also hasn't been seen since these events. Everything always seems to come back to Howland Reed, in hiding at Greywater Watch. There may even be some evidence to back this claim up. When Mira is telling the story of the Night of the Laughing Tree to Bran, Jojen asks Bran repeatedly if he's sure that he hasn't heard this story before. It's as though it's important for him to have heard it. He asks him at the start of the story, again when Mira is halfway through, and again at the end. For whatever reason, Jojen definitely takes an interest in whether Bran has heard the story before. As readers, we know the importance of the tourney at Harrenhal. It's when Rhaegar and Lyanna first meet. It's when Ned and Ashara first meet, and it's when Ned and Howland first meet. All of the factors that go into beginning the events that end at the Tower of Joy first come together at this point. Mira and Jojen would know this if they had grown up around Sir Arthur and Ashara at Greywater Watch. This is the reason we get the story from the author. This is the reason Mira tells it to Bran. And this is the reason Jojen is so interested in what Bran knows of it. But if that's true, why don't they just tell him? The answer is surely that Mira and Jojen have been sworn to secrecy by their father, Howland Reed, because it would give away the truth, both in terms of the in-world story and to us the reader. A truth that George R. R. Martin has gone to great lengths to remain hidden.